And now we're going on to the next session, which is to talk about the Metaverse. And the Metaverse is the sort of current buzzword in the media. So it's on television programs, it's in newspapers, it's everywhere. And there are all sorts of companies looking at what the Metaverse is going to mean for them. So I think Honda has opened up an online Metaverse showroom for its cars. We've got Forever 21, who've gone and opened up a store for clothes for avatars on Roblox. And we've got all sorts of other people looking at what they can do on the Metaverse. But of course, it's in gaming that one would have thought that the most opportunity lies. And so today, we've got very pleased to have two very eminent speakers on this. We've got HaZ Dulull, who's a games developer and film developer with his new product, game and film Rift, which is a crossover between gaming and films. And then we've also got Laura Higgins, who's going to talk to us, who's from Roblox, and is head of social civility and online safety for Roblox. And we're going to hear from both of them as to what the Metaverse means for their companies and for the opportunities. So just 10 minutes. So HaZ, just starting with you. You're doing this crossover between games and films. What do you think Metaverse is going to be as an impact for your business?
I think look, we were speaking to Laura about this earlier, like the whole concept of the Metaverse, the whole immersive virtual worlds, it's been going on for a long time. I started my career in like 97, just kind of shows my age a bit. But, and we'd always been looking at, community ways of playing games. I think now it's accessibility to technology and tools to creators that basically lowers the barrier of entry. So like you introduced, we're officially a film production company doing animation and live action. And now we're a game development company as well because of the accessibility to tools. And it means that as storytellers, we can provide more to our audience, but also give the audience of the film a chance to kind of like play in the world of the story that you couldn't really get in a movie and be much more immersive. As storytellers, that's really exciting to be able to open the world out much more to our audiences, but also user-generated content, get them to like remix their own version of the movie. It's really cool.
And for Roblox, same sort of question.
So I think for us, this is definitely not a new concept. We've been really building this metaverse since the beginning. So Dave, our founder, he always talks about this human co-experience, really, I think is how he puts it. So this idea that people will come together not just to play games, but to create together, to socialize, to have, music experiences, to go to concerts, to go shopping, and all sort of this really immersive experience, so that it feels very real for you when you're actually in it, and that you can kind of move seamlessly through all of those things. So yeah, it's definitely, that's always been part of the vision, I think, for us. It's been interesting watching the term being used as it is now and other people's interpretation of what the metaverse actually looks like, which of course is quite different than how we saw it coming.
Yes, we've seen a lot of different uses of the term through the media, and it's used as a populist term. Sometimes it's slightly controversial in the way that it's used. Laura, how do you feel that the presentation in the media?
It's really unhelpful. So a huge part of my job is about supporting families. Roblox has historically always been very popular with younger children. Over half the people on our platform now are actually teenagers and adults. So we are aging up, very quickly. But, I think parents are really scared and worried about the metaverse, what it means. They're seeing all these different versions of it. I think it's very confusing. So the most helpful thing I think that we can be doing is try to clarify that and make it much simpler for them to understand. I think, there's a big focus on it being all about VR. And of course, no, it doesn't necessarily have to be. And some of the, scaremongering that we've seen, the bad news stories that have been in the papers has all been very focused on the VR, but it doesn't necessarily make that clear. Then when you throw in all the kind of blockchain and Web 3.0 conversations and NFTs, dare I even say it just once, I think then it becomes into financial concerns and, I don't want my children in these spaces. So we really need to unpack some of that, I think, for people.
Yeah, I could follow up on that as well, like from a business point of view, like from a production studio point of view, the minute we say like, hey, we're looking into blockchain or blockchain-driven video games or storytelling or narrative, you get this look like, really? Like, what's your genuine reason? Like, no, we want to really, you're just cashing out here, right? You're like, and it's because there's a reputation for there are some genuine, really good Web3 products out there that are really, truly tapping into the metaverse and really trying to provide things for the audience. And then there are others that are just they see it as a cash cow. They go, oh, we can create a bunch of NFTs and make loads of money. And you're always going to get that. When the internet first, was accessible, people were doing that, right? There was pornography, there was all sorts of things, a way to make money off tech. I think, from a production company point of view, our biggest challenge is, finding genuine reasons to create content for the metaverse, not just for the sake of it's there, we're going to do it, right? It's the same reason when we decided to make an animated film a couple of years ago. Do you really want to make an animated film, or can that not be done live action? Don't just do it because you can. And I think that's a ethos. I think a lot of creative companies like ours, but also others, that have got to constantly remind themselves what is the real reason for you creating content for the metaverse?
Yeah, it does feel that not a lot of people have got a proper strategic overview as to where they want it all to go and what they think the metaverse can deliver for them. And it does feel a little bit like people are just sort of dipping their toe in because they feel like they have to. So, what are your views as to where the metaverse will lead over the next maybe 5 years? Let's take a time period of time. And what do you think it will deliver more broadly for society at large?
Sure, I'll go first, and I'm sure you're going to. I think we're, like you said, we're really scratching the surface at the moment. At the moment, we're we use something called Unreal Engine, right, which is used to create Fortnite and stuff and so on. And for us, we can quickly, within minutes, whip up a level and walk around, right? Now, 10 years ago, that wasn't necessarily possible. You had to create the engine and create all this stuff and spend months and developers. And I can just literally bring a section from my movie and walk around. Now, that's very, very scratching the surface. But I think in the future, we're looking at, for me, I think it's user-generated content. That's the thing that excites me, because walking around an environment or a metaverse, let's face it, that's been going on for a very long time, right? Very long time. But to give control to your audience, to let them create content based on the sandbox that you created, whether it's a movie IP, whether it's a music IP, whether it's a video game IP that's opened up, that is exciting. And that is the reason why we should be embracing the metaverse, because we're giving control back to the audience, to the players.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. HaZ, you and I have spoken about this already, but Roblox is completely user-generated. We don't create any of the experiences. There are millions of different things in there that have all been made by the developers around the world. And in terms of their economy and the opportunities for those developers is amazing. So we paid out over $500 million last year to the developers. That's a huge amount of money, and a lot of them are young, they're kind of teenagers and in their early 20s, building out these studios and employing staff themselves. And so that for us is really exciting to see. I think in terms of civility, safety within the metaverse, there's going to have to be such a huge amount of focus. Obviously, that's my day-to-day job. But, we have a vision. We really want Roblox to be more civil than the real world. So really kind of role modeling those behaviors and encouraging positivity is really important, I think. One of the things where we're seeing people coming onto the platform, yes, of course, they're doing those things I talked about. They are going to the pop concerts that we're hosting, DJs and movie premieres and all sorts of things, but actually using it much more for the education purposes and actually work. I think the enterprise side of it's going to be happening much more. We hang out, we have our town hall meetings in Roblox, which is chaotic, as you can probably imagine. Yeah, I think we're seeing more and more of that kind of use for it. And I just think the opportunities are endless, really. But it does have to be managed, and people do have to have oversight of it.
Yeah, so I'm going to, just because the whole children protection thing is I'm a lawyer, but it's a big issue coming through now at the moment, how you protect children online. And since you're here, I'm going to ask you the question about it. So it's, how does Roblox go about, giving people protection online, making sure that they do feel that their kids are safe when they're dealing online?
So we were built for kids and around kids, and so that kind of idea of safety by design, really, that's our number one priority. That's where we started. actually it kind of annoys some of our community because we're far too strict, probably. So as we're aging up, we are trying to be mindful of that. And so whilst we don't want to kind of loosen those sort of safety reins, we are kind of trying to just make it so there's a little bit more freedom for the older ones coming on the platform. We have a real multi-layered approach to safety. So obviously we use lots of different automated tools and safety tech. People are probably always the most important thing here. So reviewing content. So obviously all the user-generated content is all pre-reviewed before it's allowed onto the platform. And then we're running things throughout that kind of keep monitoring for any inappropriate kind of content that's being uploaded. We work with organisations all over the world, and that again is so important for us. Some of my policy colleagues are here somewhere, and so yeah, we're going to be doing a little bit of a recce while we're here visiting lots of our safety partners as well. But yeah, it's really important so that we hear what's happening outside the platform as well, because that is going to be impacting our community and the way that they behave. So whilst we have the tools and chat filters and all of those sorts of things, actually, I have a sounding board, for example, of young people who I can chat to. They can feed back to me about what's actually happening, like what is happening when they're on Discord, what is happening with the Twitter community, and all of those sorts of things. And some of the things that, as I say, we can make some assumptions. I've worked in safeguarding for many, many years, so I know basic things we have to keep kids safe. But actually understanding the nuance of, for example, we know the impact that the pandemic's had on their mental health. So putting in additional support for them, making sure they can get to resources when they need to, making sure that we're supporting them and their families, and also educating the parents as well is a huge part as well. We can't just keep the kids safe alone. It takes all of us to work together, really.
Because parents can't easily monitor what's going on. The control of that lot went years ago. So it's
exactly. I mean, we know when we say, we don't want to sort of tell parents off and say you must be responsible. Actually, it's fun to hang out with your kids. Games are fun. Go play them together. I think a lot of parents don't see their online activity in the same way as they see their kids. But actually, most youngsters actually would really value having some of that time with their families and just having a bit of silliness and showing them what they enjoy when they're on Roblox. Maybe get the parents to create something too.
So, just moving on. How difficult do you find the movement between film and games and making that work in an integrated and convincing way? Because there's been many occasions where people have tried to make a game out of a film, it hasn't worked, and it's how do you make that a success?
Yeah, it is a tricky one. I think being candid here, it was actually pure accident how this happened, by the way. I know there's no magic science behind it. We set out to make an animated film. Because of the pandemic, we were using Unreal Engine to do a lot of our previs. It's kind of like, the moving storyboard version, but all in the game engine. And we're using it for previs because, I came from a visual effects background where, the visual effects world back 10 years ago or something was like, we make movies, you guys make games, and that's like a big divide. Now the lines are blurred massively, right? But now it's it's amazing. But we're doing previs, and I was showing this previs to executives in LA and the studios, and they're like, is this an animated film? We're like, no, man, that's just previs. What are you on about? And they're like, no, just, with a bit of time, you could really turn this into an animated film. When we realized, oh my God, we could do that. So the pandemic hit, and the previs we're doing for the live action movie, obviously put on hold. And we quickly moved into making a movie in Unreal Engine, which we had a script that was unshootable. We thought, great, we'll put it in there. It made sense to do it in animation because you just can't shoot it. There's gravity-defying action sequences, deals with multiverses, all of that stuff. And then one day what I wanted to do was doing a car chase sequence. And I didn't want to animate physics because it's really hard to animate physics. We're like, well, the game engines are really good at simulating physics in real time. So why don't we create our shots in that? And then the next minute, an hour goes by, we plug in a controller, and all of a sudden, we're playing a game. And we decided, let's have a game jam session, right? So and again, we're all filmmakers with some development background, but we're not hardcore game developers or anything like that. And within a weekend, we put together a really rough demo, showed it to people, and everyone was like, that's a game. And we're like, oh my God, there's so many things we wanted to do in the movie that we couldn't do because you only have 90 minutes to fill that screen with structure. Whereas in a game, there's so much you could go because it's multi-branched, right? So I went back to the script writer and said, hey, all these pages of stuff we cut out? Well, we can actually put it in the game and really, show a different version of what the movie could have been, or an extension. And that's how we end up making the game and the film in parallel, by the way. So as the film is being rendered, we're making the game, and all the assets we build for the movie gets migrated into the game. We don't have to worry too much about level of detail. Like back in the day, you had to create like really low res versions of stuff, because Unreal does a really good job what you call level of detail. So it's so easy to go backwards and forward. It's way more easy than we imagined it, actually, because of tools like Unreal Engine. And let's not forget Unity as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks beautiful, by the way, so people should go and have a look at it. So you've released some trailers and things.
Yeah, we released the 7 minutes early pre-alpha version of like footage last night. It's off our YouTube channel. So yeah, check it out. Just type in Hazimation on YouTube, you'll find it. But then at the end of the month, we're going to release on Steam the first early access of the game. And for us, it's super important because, like, in the movie industry, you can't test your movie before making it. Whereas in video games, it's amazing the fact you can create a rough demo, get it out to people, and get feedback, genuine feedback, and no one's going to like judge it for for the visual fidelity or collisions. They'll just say, oh yeah, you could make this better. Whereas that's something that we've embraced, going from films to games. Personally, I prefer making games, just saying. So yeah.
So I'm now going to go to the unspeakable and talk about just NFTs quickly. The shiver goes through Laura at that point. I do think the whole NFT development side of things is a very interesting one. There's been an awful lot of focus on speculation over the last 12 months because we've seen Bored Ape and other things getting to very high values, and then some of them have come down again. But it is not, putting aside the sort of speculative side, which we've seen at this sort of early stage, if I can put it like that, use of NFTs, isn't an NFT something that within the metaverse is going to become, a means by which people identify themselves? So they will possibly use an NFT to go from game to game, or or to have their online presence within, whether it be Teams or Zoom meetings or whatever else. Do you see that coming through?
Hey, you go first. I've done so much talking.
Yeah, okay. So within Roblox, we're kind of keeping our metaverse within Roblox. We don't see a way yet that you can keep young people safe when they're on other people's platforms. We lose all responsibility for that. So actually, whilst I can see the benefit, I think for adults, it would be a really sensible thing when they're safer. Still not quite there yet, blockchains. But yes, I think when it comes to kids, we don't really want them moving off platform and going to other places. So not necessary for us at the moment.
I think for us, everyone in Hollywood at the moment is looking at NFTs. I'm sure you all played the Matrix Awakens game that they released on PlayStation 5, which is amazing. But then a week later, Warner Brothers released the Matrix Awakens NFTs. And you look at that and, I hate to say it, but it's literally just characters taken and they just create variations. Whereas I think for indie developers, indie filmmaking, to find more ways to monetize in your IP and giving something unique and special to your audiences that they can hold on, I think that's where the NFT worlds are going to play really well. And they can use it for their avatars. We're working on projects at the moment. Obviously can't mention too much, but we're creating NFTs that are functional, utility-based NFTs, not just an image with 6,000 variations and pay for that. No, there's a reason for it. How does that work in your movie? How does that work in the game? I think that's where NFTs are going to go, because people are going to start to really catch on that, people are just creating 6,000 images, variations in Photoshop,
It does. The whole metaverse does feel still quite early on in its development at this stage. There is a bit of a feeling of the sort of 2000s about it, as it was with the internet. And that actually people are still figuring out how to use it all and where it should move to. So that's why I think it's an interesting development. I think the opportunity for developers is that you've highlighted there, which I don't know if people realised how much Roblox has paid out to developers in the last year, but that's a massive opportunity for people. I can see that sort of coming through. So just sort of again looking forward to what one can create. Where do you think that? Do you think it's going to become part of the way that people operate within their businesses, within the metaverse itself? It's going to become a sort of a driver for the economics of businesses, and that you have to be there in order to make your business operate? Is that where we're going to move to, or do you think that it's going to stay more of a closed circle going forward? So will every business need to have a presence in the metaverse in order to be competitive, or is that something which is probably unrealistic at this stage?
That's a really good question. I mean, you're on fire there with those questions. They're really good. I mean, I think it's like if we go back to the way the internet was, when the internet first came out, I remember I was like in school or something, on a Nimbus computer or something, and it was just forums, right? It was just text forums, and then decades later, we've got video and we got images, and then we got Flash. Remember Flash games, right? We had Flash games, and all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, this is the thing. It doesn't get better. And now, I go into Chrome, log in, and I can walk around a fully 3D environment with reflections and stuff, and I'm interacting with people, or I can go into Roblox, and it's very stylized, but I get a sense of community. I think it's going to keep growing. And in terms of businesses, yeah, I mean, look at Nike, look at H&M. They're all like buying land in like Sandbox, and there's a reason for that. And the big reason is everything is generation based, right? Like I'm sure we're like the start internet kids, right? Like when the internet first came out, the 28.8 modem that takes forever to download an image. Whereas the next generation of kids is all about efficient, real time. They want stuff at the fingertips. Everyone is swiping. So businesses have to adapt to that because you're making content for the audience, you're making it for the buyers. So yes, businesses will have to adapt that. But I don't think it will be exclusive for the metaverse. I think if people are smart about it, you can bridge the both. You could have a version of the metaverse which connects with real life because we don't want to be in a matrix type where we're constantly plugged in. And I think people are going to start figuring out, well, there's stuff you can do in the metaverse, which then, when you take off your headset or when you come off the computer or your phone, you can then continue that experience or extend that experience in reality. I think that's where it's going.
I think so. I think a couple of things. So in terms of Roblox and where we're going, we've seen such amazing development so very quickly. It's like a new world. So, there's some of our developers are creating these experiences. You saying about the stylized thing. Most people probably can, have seen pictures of the old Roblox, but they're creating experiences that look like AAA games now. I mean, they are just absolutely incredible. And actually, with that, us having to keep up with them, to keep giving them the tech that they want. We're seeing things like, one of the things that we've acquired something which is going to be coming out quite soon, which is giving realistic facial expressions. So when you're talking to somebody, being able to actually read their body language and say, oh, actually, did I just hurt your feelings when I said that? Or, are you understanding what I'm talking about? All of those sorts of things. I think it's just going to keep growing and becoming much, much more, as I say, that realistic, immersive, and a much kinder place to be, really, I think. So that's a wonderful thing going forward specifically with us. We're also seeing, of course, increasingly brands who want to be part of our metaverse because that is where the community is that they want to target. Now, obviously, we're very mindful about, advertising and, all of those sorts of things and protecting our community. We don't want it to just become all about that commercial stuff. But actually, that's also what young people want to enjoy as well. So I think while we're offering that space, they're going to keep coming and will want to be part of it. I also, though, think, people are already kind of rolling their eyes when you say the word metaverse. So I think it's going to blow over for a lot of companies where hopefully they won't feel that they have to be part of it. Actually, people will choose, yes, okay, I enjoy that for this part of my life, but I don't need it for every single thing that I do.
Do you think that we've got a lot of companies that are now operating within the metaverse? Facebook's changed its name to Meta, right? Which the implications of which are probably still trying to be worked out fully. But we've got a lot of very big names within it. Microsoft, and we're going to hear more from Microsoft in the metaverse in a minute. But Microsoft is in it with Azure and other technologies, and then we've got a lot of other people. Is there enough collaboration going on between the various the platforms, the providers, people like Microsoft, the developers, etc., to actually make the most of it? Do you think that's still very much in the development phase at the moment?
I mean, for what I've been seeing, like I can compare it with the way films are made. The way films are made, the collaboration stuff is very transactional. It's very much like, if you want to be part of my movie, then you got to give me X amount of points of sales and so on, or you become a producer or an exec. What I found in the Web3 space or that the metaverse or just content generation is I'm finding there's much more collaboration. There isn't this thing like where things are siloed, we're working on one metaverse project where, we're talking to the back-end developers in the same meeting as we're talking about creative, and everything feeds in, and there's none of this like, there's not that so much ego, because there isn't room for ego, because you're building a world. You're not building specific components. So I find the level of collaboration from a business point of view is just going to grow, because you need all those things to plug in. It's not like you just load up one platform and then you've got it, right? You need components, and people forget also you need artists to create these content. It's not, yes, we have the amazing Roblox, we have Sandbox and all of that, but you still need artists to create content. And I think that's the big thing at the moment is the collaboration of that, where artists are now not just creating assets for video games or movies. They're actually, there's the job opportunities is so much bigger, but the level of collaboration is way bigger because everyone's collaborating to feed into this one world.
Yeah, I mean, I would say games industry has always been really, really good at working together. Actually, it's very different. So previously, before I came to Roblox, I was at the UK Safer Internet Centre, and I used to work across all the tech industry. And I have to say, moving particularly into the games industry, it's different. Everyone's got this shared goal of safe and healthy communities and people having a good time. That's kind of what we want to do. And so actually sharing ideas, working together for that to happen for people, I see all the time, and I see that continuing really with this whole metaverse idea. We have bigger things to fight about than than this, really.
So is the metaverse the biggest opportunity for games developers in the last however many years?
I don't know if it's the biggest opportunity. I mean, I think the game industry on its own, without connecting to the metaverse, is huge as it is, and it just keeps growing. I started looking at the games world back in the Spectrum days, right? And I've seen it from little Pong to where we are today with photorealistic graphics all in real time. If you look at game cinematics, right? I used to work in game cinematics, so we would spend months and months rendering this beautifully rendered stuff that goes onto a QuickTime online. Whereas now we don't even do that. We generate it all in the game, and you play the game, all of a sudden you are in a cinematic, and then you're back in the game, and it's so seamless. So, I mean, that's without the metaverse, right? That's just what it is. So I think the metaverse, in turn for the metaverse to work, they're going to have to borrow so much from the way the games industry works. And it's, in a way, the metaverse is kind of like just another level of the game industry tier. In my opinion, I don't see it as a separate thing.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. It was a perfect answer, really. I just think it's an opportunity. It's not the only thing that's going on. We're just seeing, particularly in the UK, the games industry is just going from strength to strength, which is fantastic. So more of that, but it is another opportunity for people, I think.
Maybe I'll just give the audience, if there's anybody with a question, a couple of questions, then I'll be welcome to put your hand up. And yes, please do. Oh, you'll need a microphone. I think I've broken the system. I don't think it was expected that I'd do this.
Can you hear me? Hi. Hello, I'm Sima Edinç. I'm a film producer and game producer also. We transformed indie film studio into the gaming studio in 2014, and we launched 3 interactive cinema into Steam and mobile games.
Awesome.
So, I just want to ask you, from your experience, what is the biggest challenge you faced when you transform your film into the gaming, and also now on the metaverse? And could you please tell us the challenge and the positive sides of this?
Sure. I mean, let's start with the positive, because I always like to start nice. Assets. Assets is the big thing. Before, when we made a film, we would make assets super high resolution, and they'd be specifically only rendered for the frame. And it would take God knows how long they take to render, several nights, and it's printed on the film. Whereas now, when you're doing a film and a game, you just build that asset, that high-res asset once, and you share it across the game, across the metaverse content. And so there's much more freedom with your assets. Nothing goes to waste. So there's a level of sustainability here, because traditionally the film industry is so used to just remaking stuff. Whenever they made the video game version of Harry Potter, they never went back to NPC to get the assets. No, they rebuilt the assets based on concept art. That's a lot of time and a lot of effort when someone's already built that asset for years, right? So there's that. That's the positive. I think the challenges is I think just having a genuine reason for doing a game and a movie at the same time. That's a challenge. Like, just because you are working in a game engine doesn't mean you can do a game of the film. You've got to have a genuine reason. So I think, when you're creating IP, transmedia is the word what you should be using here, right? If you're creating transmedia IP, you really are creating a world, a universe, and that's very challenging because you need to bring on writers that are able to think in that way. And I find that some of the best writers are the ones that write video games because they're not just so used to writing a 90-page or 100-page script and that's it, or do a Bible and that's it. They really think from a branch narrative point of view. What if this happens? What if that happens? The other challenge is it's overwhelming. Like, as a creative, you just go so far, and then you need to have, frankly, I have a producing partner who's like, whoa, stop. Stop right there. Like, that's a bit too much. You got to have a bit of guideline on how far you go. And the other thing also is graphics cards. I'm sure some of us experienced trying to get hold of an NVIDIA graphics card. It's like last year was nearly impossible. So keeping up to date with technology as well, like Unreal Engine, because I use Unreal, but Unity is the same as well. They keep generating new versions all the time. And the obstacle we found was, it's so easy to go, oh my God, I've got to install this new version of Unreal because it does this and that. And then it breaks everything else. So you've got to be careful on that as well because it becomes so exciting, so overwhelming just to use tools. So, those are the main obstacles. The other big obstacle, by the way, is style, which is why I have so much respect for what you guys did in Roblox. Stylization. Everyone assumes when you're making an animated film or a game that it needs to look like cyberpunk or a AAA game or photorealism, facial expressions. That's not necessarily true. It's all about story. Or if you're making a game, it's all about experience and story. So our biggest obstacle is educating streamers, like people like Netflix or Amazon, or even producers or financiers, that we're making a stylized film so that it fits in an animation category. If you try and create something like Love, Death, and Robots Episode 1, which is amazing, by the way, it's very hard to put that in an animation category because animation traditionally known as Ren and Stimpy, Simpsons, or so on, they have a 2D look. So the hardest thing for us, to be honest, was actually the art direction, creating a style that people go, oh, that's animation, but at the same time, it can be worked as a film and a game.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah. Gentleman up
there. Shout us, it's fine.
Hi, everyone hear me? Cool. Hey, my name's Ricardo. I'm from Love Music. We essentially integrate a lot of music artists into the gaming world whenever it comes to their live tours and their spaces. So right now we're working with Imagine Dragons, which is kind of part of my question because obviously they've done a lot of work with Arcane, and that's kind of been the bridge between music, gaming, films, TVs. I kind of wanted to ask, do you see your, movie game being integrated into a series so people like Netflix can see it? And how do you see that working with popular culture, like musicians that might want to be, we're a big fan of it, we want to make custom music for you guys. How do you integrate that pop culture world into the new space where Web 3.0 is going and just, where the whole world is moving?
Okay, I'll go first and you go. Okay, that's a really good question. Our movie actually uses a music band. So we have a music band called Mirror Shot, who are at South by Southwest 2 weeks ago. And the way we did that was, we had relationships with the artists and they were fans of our work. So very early on, they started seeing storyboards, they started seeing concept. They're like, oh my God, man, there's a really cool track on our album that works so well for this. Or can we create a version of our track for this? And it's very interesting because from a film point of view, the licensing and the sync licensing is a little bit different because you're not taking a music track from an album. You're essentially doing a remix specifically for that. And I love that because then you got a level of collaboration, but also we all know it's not just about the audio, it's not just about the picture as well as the audio. And having a soundtrack, like Arcane's a good example. Like you watch the opening sequence, tonally it's going to be so good, it sets it up, and the lyrics make sense. So from our point of view, when it comes to the movie, we love working with bands, but for the video game, we're working with a synthwave artist called Code Electro. Again, huge fans of each other's work on Instagram. You know, social media is a huge thing when you're making content, by the way. I tell everyone, just get on social media. Even if you hate it, get someone else to do it. Because you just find people just reach out to you. And Code Electro are like huge fans of like my previous films. And what they did was we couldn't really afford to license their tracks from their album because of all the licensing issues and stuff with the publisher. But what the artist did was he released his stems. So stems are layers of what builds up the track. And that was a different license. And we were able to use like the ambient stem of the track for one of the levels. We're able to use the drums for the action. All of a sudden, we're music's editing in the game, which is a whole new way of developing with music. Yeah.
Obviously not necessarily specific to Roblox, but yeah, I mean, you know, we have so many different partners who come onto the platform. So, you know, we have, you know, David Guetta DJing recently. One of our best concerts, I think, was Lil Nas X. And he was so involved in the process, did the whole kind of Mopac suit, did all the dancing, everything, and sort of worked with the team on the whole creative direction of the concert and what he wanted that to look like. And so, yeah, I just, you know, we have so many artists coming. Can't talk about them, obviously. But, of course, as well, being a user-generated platform, there's also a lot of young people who are creating their own experiences and their own music. We have loads of, people who are creating in that side as well already. So it's not just the professionals doing it, but people within Roblox as well.
Yeah, so lots of opportunity for crossover between all the different creative industries through all of this, which is fantastic. So I think we've probably come to the end of our time. I want to say thank you very much, Laura and HaZ. It was brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.